excited to be back with you guys. I've watched the finale a couple of times now, and I really enjoyed it. Not exactly what I was expecting. It felt a little bit lackluster, if I'm being honest, but it was very excellent. Gave us a ton of setup for some things that are coming, and it answered a ton of questions, albeit in a very subtle and smooth way. Maybe so smoothly that it wrapped up some things so quickly and with some lines and some good dialogue and some character arcs that it did not pack the punch that most Marvel stuff does. So let's just talk about some of those things, break down the big moments right off the bat, and then maybe get into some minutia later on. So right off the bat, Kingpin, got a lot more interaction with Kingpin than I thought we would, not just conversations behind a desk. I thought honestly that would be it, that we'd get some conversations with him and Eleanor behind a desk, and then that would be it. Maybe something at the end teasing where he's going. I did think there was going to be a Maya Echo Kingpin connection there, but I did not expect the massive fight that happens between him and Clint, and did not expect the massive fight that happens between him and Kate at the toy store. That was really excellent, and there were some things that I noticed right off the bat that I loved about having the same actor as Kingpin jump right into the role in the MCU. Even if they don't use the same Kingpin from before as far as the story's concerned, the fact that we as moviegoers, viewers, fans have seen this character thus far, he already comes into the show with this idea that he's dangerous. They didn't have to do anything to prove it to you. And so when he's sitting there across from Eleanor and his face twitches a little bit, or he starts making some comments, if you've watched the Daredevil stuff, this is a bad guy. And if you didn't know that, then just watching those things for the first time made you think, oh, this guy is really capable of some stuff, which I think for new viewers, seeing him get a little worked up immediately in front of Kazi with Maya and with Eleanor and all those kind of things needed to happen. It also needed to happen where you see him get hurt in ways that didn't really faze him. I think that the MCU in general is portraying a much tougher, meaner, bigger Kingpin, just in scope and in power than we got in the Netflix series. And I know in the Netflix series he was menacing and those kind of things, but just the little things that they did with camera angles and making him look bigger, the footfalls seeming louder as he walks into the room, all those little things make a big difference. And then of course him taking an arrow to the chest and it doing nothing, him getting hit by a car and getting back up, being blown up and being able to walk away from it, all of those things are really big deals. But because you know those things, if you're a fan and you've seen those shows, he had a much more menacing presence immediately than he would have otherwise. And then getting to see him and Kate square off against each other, even though presumably he could just completely destroy Kate. He's kind of toying around with her, but Kate gets her moment to show that she's not afraid, that she's willing to go toe-to-toe with the big guys. Was really an excellent moment, and I really liked that they gave her something like that, in addition to her dropping down into the ice skating rink and shooting all of her arrows to create the smoke and just make that scene. Really gave her those moments for you to see that she knows what she's doing and she can handle herself. So you got the big Kingpin reveal. In those moments, you found out that Eleanor had orchestrated or actually been the one that killed Armand and then framed Jack because of it. She framed Jack as the subsidiary or the CEO of Sloan Limited, which he's not. It's something that Kingpin is in charge of, and we found that out very quickly, but briefly, and so it wasn't really hindered. It wasn't lingered upon. We found out a lot of evidence there, and that she is the one that hired Yelena to come and take out Clint Barton because he was getting too close. The Ronin was running around and Kingpin was wanting somebody to handle it. In addition to the fact that he's covering up his own Ronin moment where he hired somebody to come and take out Maya's dad. And so you have all these moments that they really wrapped up in that one conversation moving forward. And then as we're finding that out, Kate is finding it out too on video. And so the quick conversations that they have to have, and Clint and Kate talking about what a superhero has to do and the decisions they have to make, and then Clint calling her his partner, just really sealed that moment. And they just moved from beat to beat. I thought they could have stretched that out across episode 5 and 6 and done a whole lot of that. This episode made episode 5 seem a little weaker to me because I wanted them to flesh out these things a lot more, and they packed it all into episode 6, which made for a really good episode 6, but it kind of let me down for episode 5 even more. We got our Kingpin reveal. You get to see Jack as swordsman, wielding his sword and interacting. I like that he's kind of this morally gray character, that he's not totally a good guy, he's not totally a bad guy either. That maybe he's just misunderstood, and you didn't get really much more than that, except for the fact that he's out there fighting the tracksuits, which was really awesome. You get to see more trick arrows. That was a whole lot of fun. Presumably that workshop is at Grill's house, which Grills has an excellent workshop to do all kinds of things. He's excellent. And then you even had an old school Dungeons and Dragons poster on the wall from that predates Dungeons and Dragons, which is a really cool Easter egg as well. You get some conversations about answers to where did Clint get the trick arrows from, the Pimtech arrows. And when Kate shoots an arrow and shrinks down the truck that the tracksuits are driving, Clint remarks that, well, he'll have to ask Scott about that. So you kind of find out, well, he's been getting that tech from Scott, which kind of fits the character because Scott in Ant-Man 2 was known to do some things without Hank's approval, and it made Hank upset. So that Scott is interacting with Clint, even behind the scenes, in clear violation of the Sokovia Accords, that they're still kind of doing their thing. The fight scene right there in the Rockefeller Center, the interaction between Kate and Yelena, every time Florence Pugh comes on the screen, she just steals the show. And the fight that they had, the interaction that they had in the elevator with the costumes, and then Kate getting her moment as Yelena, runs down the side of the building, and then Kate decides to follow her. If you'll remember from episode 1, Kate, as a child, sees Hawkeye leap off the building in the Avengers movie and then use his bow to swing into the window below. As they're running away from the tracksuit guys, Clint and Kate jump off the Washington Bridge, and Kate kind of holds on with him, and so she gets to practice jumping off of a building and flying, but with Clint. And then in this episode, she gets her moment to do it herself, and couple that with the conversation that she has with Clint about, you jumped off a building even though you couldn't fly and you have no superpowers. Showed me that a superhero doesn't have to have powers. It just needs to be someone brave enough to step up and do the right thing. That line was amazing. It's almost its own with great power comes great responsibility type line, which I thought was really excellent for helping Kate come into her own. Not something they needed to do because having her partnered with Clint seemingly was enough, but the evolution of the story and her stepping into that role and then having to confront her mother and arrest her was even that much more emotional after having just fought Kingpin. And I thought the moment where she could have easily let him walk off, but she barricades herself in the room with those electrified lines from her arrow, just set the stage even more for, no, I'm going to face this head on, which was really, really cool. And it was awesome to see those happen. She really got her hero moments, as well as Kate and Clint getting their hero moments as they're kind of shooting arrows and the camera's going around them and they're handling all these guys. It was really, really cool. You got another quick little answer, from episode 3, actually episode 4, where Clint and Kate are having their Christmas moment, and Kate is learning how to flick the coin. Not only does she do that with Kingpin's cufflink in order to ignite the explosion, but from that one episode, Clint and Kate are having a conversation, and Clint says, yeah, you can totally do this if the first arrow you shoot is wooden. and then the next arrow splits it in two. It's kind of an odd line. It's like, okay, what are you talking about? But then you see Clint take out 3 tracksuit guys. He shoots a wooden arrow, and then he shoots a metal one right after it, and it splits the wooden one in two, and it takes out those 3 guys. So just these little bitty payoffs that let you know that they wrote this thing start to finish, and they wanted these little payoffs to have big moments at the end for all of these characters involved was really, really great. The conversation that Yelena and Clint get to have finally about Natasha, where Yelena says, you should have fought harder to keep Natasha from killing herself. And Clint gets to finally say, look, she wanted to do it. It wouldn't have mattered. She was going to do it anyway. She needed to do it. I did not let her. I fought, and she did it anyway. And then the whole conversation where Clint is acknowledging, especially with the whistle, and all those different things where Clint tells Yelena that Natasha talked about her all the time, knew about her flying the plane, which means where they grew up, that he knew about Ohio, all of those different things. Couple all those things with the fact that Clint did not get blipped. He was Ronin after the snap occurred, and he was not blipped back. And then we found out that Yelena was, that she was snapped and then came back. It's a throwaway thing. It doesn't really matter necessarily, but it was a question I had at the end of Black Widow with regard to the headstone that Yelena visits in Ohio, is who made it? Because it says Avenger, sister, daughter. Well, who knew that? Because Yelena was gone, she didn't make the headstone, and she's visiting it, so is she taking care of it? And why is it in Ohio? Because it seems like she should have known that. She was the only one that knew that. But Clint confirming that he knew about Yelena, even though he chooses not to tell the Avengers about it, which is an easy way to plug up that plot hole. You know, whenever Natasha dies, all of the Avengers are sitting out at the dock at the Avengers compound, and they say, did she have any family? And they say, well, just us. And the idea there being that Clint just didn't bring it up because not only would he not know how to find Yelena, but and that Yelena might be gone, which she still was, but at that moment they clearly hadn't written the Hawkeye series. But you can close up that plot hole rather easily by just saying, well, he didn't want to reveal any of those things and wanted to keep them private to protect Yelena, protect others, that it wasn't a story for that time, so there's no reason to tell it. So, but it gives you the answer that Clint's the one that made the headstone. Not a huge thing, not a necessary thing, but it fills in the story, and it's part of the story, and it's things that they can piece together. And I love those things about Marvel, is they don't just let things go and leave you with tons and tons and tons of questions. The questions that matter, and even the questions that don't, are ones that the writers and all the different people involved with these stories say, hey, why don't we answer that? Is there a way to write this in there? It's people who know the characters and know the stories, and I just thought that was really perfect. Other than that, all of these big moments, getting back to his family for Christmas on Christmas Day and letting Kate come with him, the funny conversation they have about her nickname. Should she be Lady Hawk? Should she be this? All of those weird little names are names that are aliases of hers in the comics, but she does end up taking on the name of Hawkeye. And so presumably that's what's going to happen in the future. Don't know if season 2 is going to be all Kate Bishop, or if Clint's just going to come in for a little bit of it, or if it's a combination of the two. But that reveal there at the end where Clint gives Laura the watch. I know a lot of people saw it coming, thought that the watch was going to belong to Laura. I was not in that crowd at first. I'll be the first to admit I was terribly, terribly wrong about something that was super duper obvious. But sometimes when you're presented with these things, it seems like the super obvious answer may not be the answer, that they want to use it for a twist, or that, it could be this, but they let that go in favor of a bigger cameo reveal. And I thought it might be another character, a way to bring back Coulson and say that he was in hiding or something like that. But this is still really excellent too, because as Laura flips over the watch, you see the SHIELD logo, and it says 19 under it. If a quick Google search of Agent 19 will pop up Mockingbird on the Marvel database. And so a lot of things that you could learn there. Is that another series? Is it another story? How did Clint and Laura get to know each other, get together? Are those prequels that we get to have? What are those stories? And so it was a really excellent addition, really kind of an unnecessary addition, but it was fun, and it added to the lore, and it kind of closed up some gaps. Like, why is this woman okay with him going away and doing all these things? Because, okay, great, she's a supportive wife, but like, he's gone and puts his family in a lot of danger. But knowing that she knows just as much, and they made this decision to be a family and live the life that they're living and do the things that they're doing, makes a lot more sense. I have my own ideas and theories on how to rank these episodes, and in the coming days we'll release our Hawkeye scorecard, which we talk about how accurate our predictions were for this show, and with the exception of episode 5, did pretty well. So tune in for that as well. There'll be a link for it up here as well. And so check out those videos. Tell us what you guys thought about the series. Tell us what you thought about this episode. I thought it was a really good finale. It had a lot of good wrap up and a lot of good build moving forward. Kingpin, definitely not dead. He gets shot, dies off screen. Maya was in her more stereotypical Echo costume, so she's going to go off and do her own thing, either going after Kingpin or going after something else. She's going to have her own series, so we know there's some stuff coming there. Clint being back at home, Kate now being on her own and going back to how's she going to fight crime, what's she going to do, where's she going to pop up next. Yelena going off on her own with this new knowledge. Everybody kind of going their different direction. It's going to be interesting to see where they all end up. So they left a lot of stuff open-ended for a lot of good setup, but they tied up all the loose ends that they needed to tie up. And so as far as the series was concerned, they didn't have to do any kind of lead into something else or unpacking of something, and any series that comes after it or any movie that comes after it's not really going to have to do a whole lot of unpacking. So it really did stand alone pretty well, but it brought in some new elements, which is really good for the Disney series, but also can be a little frustrating for some people as well if you're not really into those things. So again, tell us what you guys thought about the series. A whole lot of really awesome moments in the series and in this episode. Stay tuned for some of our other videos, the Easter egg video and our scorecard video, and check out some of our other videos in the meantime here. We got a whole lot of playlists and Easter egg videos and other things that are really cool for you to check out. And as always, when the next one drops, we'll catch you right back here. Later, guys.